attention. This is going to go pretty fast, actually. Each of the candidates have 1 minute to answer each of the questions. We'll be drawing them randomly. We've gone through them. If you see us, if I could have your attention. And if we do draw a repeat, then we will simply draw the next question. The first question, however, is just a yes or no. And that is, under Rule 26B, the first question that each candidate must answer is, if a candidate other than yourself gets endorsed, will you under any circumstances run in the primary against the DFL endorsed candidate?
No.
It should be on.
It's on. There might be a little. I'm happy to say it again. No.
Yes.
No.
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 Yes.
Okay, we will then move to the first drawn question.
What would you do to support IRB as governor? That's all you're allowed to do is read that part.
Okay, the first question that will go to, we'll go to our team now, or something?
No, now it starts with Mr. Savior, with Ole Savior.
We'll start with Ole Savior. What would you do to support IRV as governor? Ranked voting. What would you do to support IRV as governor?
I haven't thought about that very much, so I have to think about that one.
Okay, Mr. Thiessen.
Thank you. I think that the great thing about IRV is that it's doing what we're trying to do in our campaign, which is to bring a lot more new voices to the table and engage people in a politics that is different, that's more engaging around the issues and less about personality conflicts. So I have supported IRV for a long time, and the thing that I would do in the state is to move forward. The key to getting it done across the state is having uniform standards across the state and having voting machines that can do it. And I would invest in those voting machines so that's not a cost pushed down to the local governments. And I would promote this as something that is about choice, it's about bringing voices to the table, and it's not about getting rid of one man or one person, one vote.
Well, I support instant runoff voting, and what I would do is urge all of the legislators in this room to send me a bill and I'll sign it.
I was an early supporter. I actually campaigned in Minneapolis to make sure that we could have IRV. I was out on the front lines of this issue working with you. This is about including more people in the process. This is about making sure all votes are counted, and it's also been proven already that we can do this and it works well. And so implementing it statewide is about making sure there are standards across the state and that we are supportive of our local units of government, including townships, all the way up to make sure that we can pay for the equipment we need to do this.
Instant runoff voting makes good sense, especially what we see in the last several years where the Independence Party has hurt us and taken away votes from our candidates. It will avoid that problem. I've been a strong supporter of instant runoff voting, have authored the legislation to push it for about a decade now. As governor, I'll work with the entire legislature, make sure we pass it right away and make it take effect as soon as we can get the machines in place.
I'm very glad that this question came up. I'm open to the idea of instant runoff voting. If it's going to be inclusive, allow for greater democracy, greater participation of the little fellas competing with the big fellas in the election. Because at the end of the day, we want a system that is not just fair, but also progressive. I believe that the system we have has worked well so far. But if instant runoff voting will help to bring us into the criteria that I've mentioned, and then I'm not opposed to it at all, although I believe that that should be put before the people of Minnesota to decide whether this is what they want. It should not just be beneficial for DFLers, it should be beneficial for all of Minnesotans.
I not only support instant runoff voting, I help make it happen. The voters of Minneapolis, with my leadership, passed the amendment that said that we should have instant runoff voting, ranked choice voting. So we worked with our elections officials. And there were times when it was difficult, and we said we're not going to turn back because we're going to go to the future, and we did that. I'm very proud to have been the first elected official in the state to have been elected with ranked choice voting, and I think that's important. I'll provide that kind of leadership at the state, not just for an idea, but to make it happen. I've been a mayor. I haven't just been about ideas. I've been about making things happen, and ranked choice voting and my support of it is one more example of the fact I'm willing to take a risk and go out and do the tough work to put it in place.
The next question will begin with Representative Thiessen and move around the order. Do you or would you consider a temporary surtax to help with the state's financial difficulties?
I think we have to look at everything to get some more revenues into our state to balance our books and to drive down property taxes. There's a very fundamental thing going on all across the state. The number one issue I hear about is the frustration with property taxes. We need to fund our schools, we need to fund our local governments all across the state in a fair way, and a temporary surtax is a way that we can get there in a progressive way. My fundamental principle is driving down property taxes and refunding that and paying for the services and all the things that we need in the state of Minnesota in a progressive way. And I'm very much committed to doing that, and as the next governor, we'll make that happen.
Hey, I'm from the farmer labor wing of the Democratic Farmer Labor Party. And I believe in a fair tax, and that's the income tax. And that's why last year I proposed a surcharge on income taxes so we could get ourselves out of this mess. And I wanted a 10% surcharge, just like it was passed by the Democratic Farmer Labor Control Legislature in the early 1980s. And they forced Governor Al Quie to come to the table. And he did, and there was a compromise. But this guy that's in the governor's office doesn't know how to compromise. He takes his ball and goes home. We should have taken the bat and helped him go home, but I couldn't get that bill out of our caucus. I didn't get the support, but if I were governor, that'd be one fair way to fund government.
For me, it starts with Minnesota values, and it starts with the faces of Minnesotans I've met all over this state. People like Macy, who's an 8-year-old in Lake County, who is suffering under the fact that her school will be closed this year, and she will not have a school nearby to go to. And so when I think about that, I think we need to be done with the Band-Aids, done with the temporary fixes, and we need to make sure that we have a system of fair and progressive taxation in this state once again. And that is what I have been leading and making sure that we put out there. We have had a roadblock at the top, and he has been unwilling to do what is right for Minnesota values so that we can have fair and equitable school funding, so that we can have health care for all Minnesotans, and so our local and state relationship can be repaired. So for me, it's back to the principles of fair and progressive taxation. I think those who are wealthy should be paying at the top.
Our tax code in Minnesota is not progressive, it is regressive. The wealthy pay the smallest percentage of their income in taxes. That's why we need the income tax. We need to focus on raising new revenue from income tax, not using property taxes or fees or surcharges. That's why 10 years ago when the Taxpayers League and Jesse Ventura asked for the deepest cuts in state history in income tax, I voted no. It was the only no vote in the Senate. I know Tom Rukavina was one of 6 or 7 in the House because that was the wrong thing to do. And as governor, I will raise the income tax, not because I love taxes. I think taxes are a necessity. There's something like grocery bills, something you have to pay because we get something good out of it, like a civilized society. We will raise revenue with a progressive income tax. It is in my governorship.
Back to
Again, this is a very good question. As I said in my speech, I will not be held hostage by any party doctrine when it comes to ensuring that the improvement of the quality of life of the Minnesota people. Because life is about people, people are everything, and when you lift up the Minnesota people, you lift up Minnesota. So I will look at the tax system and come up with a tax system that is fair, progressive, and offers a modicum of stability for our state so that investors will know that when they go into the Minnesota economy, that they know what the tax system is going to be. I will look at a sales tax that is temporary, very short term, I heard once that Senator Tom Baca talked about it. Put it on maybe new clothing that is above $50. So if you want to buy a pair of jeans that cost $50, the tax may be $52. We will not tax clothing from the thrift store. We will not tax clothing that usually majority of the poor usually purchase. And so I think this is a progressive way to go about it. And once we've paid out the debt, then we'll end it.
This state is in financial trouble, and don't you think it's about time to get a leader in the governor's office who'll give you an honest, clear answer about how they're going to solve our budget mess? I have 4 key parts, and I've laid them out because if you don't say it in the campaign, you won't do it when you get in office. My plan is to lower property taxes, hold the line on business taxes, increase the income tax, the fairest tax for those at the top end, and broaden the sales tax for clothing over $100. Everybody said to me, you know, RT, it's political suicide to lay out a tax plan in a campaign. I think it is suicide for this campaign to nominate a candidate who won't give you a clear answer to how they're going to balance the budget. I balanced 8 straight budgets, and it's time for us to stand up as Democrats and say the only way we can deliver a progressive agenda is to be tough, strong fiscal managers. That's what I've done. People ask me if I've got any experience managing the state budget. I've been balancing Tim Pawlenty's budget for 8 years, and so has every mayor in this room. It's time we got an honest answer, and I'll give it to you.
I have many friends that are Republicans, Democrats, and independent. They ask the same question, raise taxes, and almost every one of these candidates say raise your taxes. I say no. Like I've said before, I want to put money in your pocket. I do have policies, the state fair, I go after the oil companies, and this is money in your pocket. I don't want to raise any of your taxes, and if I get a chance, I'll give you money. And that is a promise. And I can do it, and it's not unreasonable. If you want to take a chance, I can do it. I can fulfill my promises also.
Thank you. As I look around the room here, I notice that virtually everyone that is sitting at the tables is really paying attention up here, and that most of the extra noise is coming from around the edges. So please, keep those conversations out in the hall. The next question, to go to Tom, what is your plan for reaching voters from all of Minnesota to win this election?
Well, thank you. What I said in my speech came from my heart. I know I can connect to the common people of this state. And I do honestly believe there's way too much money in political campaigns. And so, like I said, I'm going to raise hope because that's what people need. I can connect to people. You know I can. I walk this floor. And this party used to be proud to run people that pulled on a wrench or pulled a plow. I'm just a common, ordinary person. That's what people want in these times. That's what I'm going to be. I'm going to be myself, and I'm going to be the governor of this state in Minnesota. Help me do it today. Come on, you know you want to do it. Just do it.
It's really important, the person's personal connection to Minnesotans, being able to connect as a public school parent, as a hockey mom, we can claim that back here, can't we? And be able to make that connection, suburban, urban, and rural. But, you know, I think it's also about bringing new people into our party and making sure that we are empowering people. I'm proud to have earned the African American caucus endorsement. I'm proud to have earned the Somali caucus endorsement, the feminist caucus endorsement. We need to build a bigger party here to be able to win in that August primary. When you think about that August primary, this is what we need to think about. What do people like to do in August? They're not watching TV, and they're usually going somewhere like the lake to go fishing. We need a candidate who's going to provide a better contrast versus Dayton and Intenza. Get people fired up, the urgency to win, the urgency to do something very big in this state again. I can make that connection. You've been seeing it on the floor all weekend, haven't you?
We're going to win this election by organizing in every corner of the state, and it starts with a vision that makes sense to people. You have to be talking about a vision and an agenda that makes a difference in their life, like providing health care to everyone and a fair tax code, and we'll do that, and then we'll organize around that. And our campaign's going to focus particularly not just on grassroots organizing in general, but we're also going to be reaching out to particular communities that we have strong ties to. We're going to be reaching out to the single-payer movement, which we've organized in every corner of the state now. We're going to be reaching out to people of low income. We're going to work in the core cities to get the higher turnouts that we need to get there. And we're going to make sure that everybody feels included, but it requires a message and a vision that you're going to organize around. You have to organize, but it has to be around a good vision. That's what Paul Wellstone taught us. That's how we win elections as Democrats.
I bring to the table passion and vision. Vision is always about what we're going to do tomorrow. Passion is a connection that you speak from the heart and that you're real, and that people know that you're not engaging in political expediency. I like people. I told you when I was speaking that I will tie every major decision when I'm the next governor to improving the quality of life of the Minnesota people. I have found the common thread that unites us all as Minnesotans. Minnesotans are concerned about clean water, clean air, quality of life, our recreational facilities. When they come back from work, they're not worried about whether their taxes are going up or down. They want to know whether they can go fishing, whether they can ride their bicycles with their children, whether they can sit down outside and just breathe the air and have a nice talk and the conversation on the balcony. I'll preserve that which has made Minnesota great. And everywhere I've gone, people have connected with that message. It doesn't matter what political party that they come from. And this, because people are everything. And when you lift up people, you lift up Minnesota.
The question is, how will we compete in all parts of the state? And like the song says, I've been everywhere. I've spent months and months going door to door around this state. We built the best grassroots campaign this state has seen in many years. I'm incredibly proud of that. But anybody up here, to understand, to get connected with this state, needs to do something I've done throughout this campaign and throughout my career. I will listen. I've got a lot to learn, every part of this state. You have a lot to teach me. But I think what I've shown in 8 years is that I know how to win an election by mobilizing grassroots, and I know how to govern by not closing the door, but opening it up. Look, folks, we got to win this election. We have a wonderful group of candidates up here. I'll work my tail off for any one of them. But we have to win this election. I start this election with a couple huge advantages in all parts of the state. Of the whole field you see here, great people, I am far and away the best known in this state. Every poll shows I'm in the strongest position. I am the only person up here who it shows can beat Mark Dayton in the primary. Now, we're going to work hard for any of these, but I don't intend to have us lose another election, and I can win this one.
The Republicans are all talking about giving us hell. But Michelle Bachmann and Palin, when you talk about giving everybody hell, you got to remember something. We Democrats want to give everybody heaven. That's a motto. And I'll tell you something else. Your symbol of the donkey, the jackass, needs to be changed. It's 100 years. I'm saying, think about changing that. They got the elephants, the Republicans. We should have like maybe a unicorn or some other symbol. Any symbol but the donkey. Think about it. We can do it. It's a maybe, okay, but it's a possibility. Every time I see that little donkey for our symbol, you know, the Republicans are using it against us. Hey, you already know my policies and everything else, so I'm going to just give the mic to the next one. Thank you very much.
Well, we're going to win this election and connect to voters the same way that we have been doing it for the last 16 months. We have built this campaign from scratch, really from the grassroots, and it's really been about hard work, about going everywhere, about truly showing up in every part of the state and talking to people one-on-one, having honest conversations. If we are going to win this election, we have to learn the lessons of the past. And to me, that lesson is that we have to go with something different. We have to appeal to the independent spirit of Minnesotans and focus in on answering their questions honestly. That's what I've been doing throughout this campaign and throughout my political career, and I think that's the kind of campaign that we need to run to win in November. I will also say there was an NPR commentator on yesterday who said of all the candidates, I'm the one that the Republicans most fear. I think because we are connecting with people in a different, independent way. I should probably end with that. Thank you.
All right, the next question will begin then with Representative Kelleher, if I remembered how to count here. As Minnesota's next governor, how will you solve the funding for General Assistance Medical Care, GAMC, to replace the stopgap compromise bill that satisfied no one?
The answer to solving the question of general assistance medical care, health care for very poor and sick Minnesotans earning under $8,000 a year, is to take the good work that has been done in the federal health care reform and expand Medicare now, expand Medicaid now in this state, MA in this state now. And that would solve our problem. It would be much fairer for rural communities. Right now, the Band-Aid and temporary fix that has been agreed upon is going to not be as sustainable as MA expansion. And so what we are doing today and what I would do as governor is make sure that everyone has health care through the Minnesota Health Plan, and make sure that as governor I sign into law the Minnesota Health Plan and that we implement that together. That is our long-term solution. We need to get a bridge to get there in the next few months, and I am completely committed to the Minnesota Health Plan.
In the short term, GAMC was always a quick fix program, and it's a broken quick fix that's been broken more and more times. And in the short term, we have to speed up the getting of the additional federal Medicaid dollars. But the bottom line is we can't have health care that a governor can unallot or a legislator can defund. We're going to have health care that's a right for everyone with the Minnesota Health Plan, and that's a promise. And it's not going to be easy to pass, but it can pass. We've got, in 3 years, we built a third of the legislature as co-authors. It's passed through 3 committees. But we're still going to have a big fight because the insurance industry will fight it tooth and nail if they feel they have a chance. And as governor, I'll give the legislature 2 years to pass it. If it doesn't pass in the second year, we'll have a special session. If it takes us to the 4th of July, we'll stay till the 4th of July. If it takes us till Labor Day, we'll stay till the 4th of till Labor Day. If it takes us till Veterans Day or Thanksgiving, we'll stay as long as it takes, because we're not going to let anybody go bankrupt or anybody die from a lack of health care in this state anymore.
I bring to the table not just passion, but also compassion. I have enormous sympathy for the most vulnerable in our society, the working poor, and those who cannot afford health care. I believe it was a travesty of justice to cut the funding for general assistance medical care. And I believe we need a long-term solution, and above all, a visionary approach to solve it permanently. During that time when we're thinking about a visionary approach, I will restore the funding that was missing. And if we have to generate revenue to do that, I will do that. You have to understand that Minnesota has the most generous Medicaid portion of our health care. So when Obama passed the health care bill, we are one of 8 states that had to share $8.5 billion, $400 million coming to Minnesota. because we have the most generous portion of Medicare, which fulfills an old scripture saying that if you lend to the poor, you lend to me, saith the Lord, and I will pay you back. Thank you.
I understand the issues of general assistance medical care because so many of the people who fall through the cracks wind up in the work that I do in my day job. I see them in our homeless shelters. I see them walking the streets with mental illness. We see enormous challenges. The attempt at the Capitol was well-intentioned, but it didn't work. It had huge negative complications for hospitals in greater Minnesota. And I know from Hennepin County Medical Center in Minneapolis, it could literally bankrupt that program if we let it go forward just as it is. We need to fix it. We shouldn't be in this debate. We should not have this debate because we need universal, affordable health care access for every single Minnesotan. And that has to be one of the key things that the next governor does. But we have to go further. Our costs for general assistance would lower and our coverage would be better if we reform the health care system. Mobilize the nurses in this state to do more programs like the Visiting Nurses Program that we fund in the city of Minneapolis. Make sure that we do more direct care for those who are in need, reform the system, and more care. Thank you.
Well, I like the health care that we have here, but we do need to reform it. And as far as I'm here to help all of you with health issues and bringing down medicine and pharmaceutical companies, making them pay what they're give us better prices. We need that. Basically, we really do need to help the poor, and to help the poor, it comes down to one thing: money. Bring money back to the state of Minnesota. What I talked about was $5 billion at the oil companies. I'm telling you, I already talked to Cerisi, and if I'm going to work on it, try to get that money for every state to help health care and budgets. So, I do have plans to help you, and no new taxes.
Well, the General Assistance Medical Care veto, I think, was the most immoral thing that this governor has ever done. And that's the first thing we have to do, is say that. I worked incredibly hard for the last 9 months before that vote to come up with something that would actually work. And I was terribly disappointed our governor vetoed it again after it passed 125-9. But the problem here is the kind of leadership that is going on in politics in Minnesota. The thing we gotta stop doing is just fixing something to say we fixed it. We passed a bill that we knew wouldn't work when we had an option on the table. The federal Medicaid expansion was on the table when we voted on that bill, but we cut the deal, and so we had to honor the deal. We gotta stop that kind of politics and push back on that. The other thing we have to do is make sure that we're not just talking about health care. This is a problem of people living unstable lives, people without homes, people without permanent employment. We gotta get people back to work, we gotta get them housed, and when we do that, we take care of this health care problem for all of us, and then we need to move to universal coverage. But that is what it's about.
It's unconscionable when a governor and a society can't take care of its most vulnerable people. Those people, but for the grace of God, there go I. And that's why I finally said enough is enough, and I didn't vote for the final version of the GAMC bill because I'm tired of hurting people. You know, it isn't about getting out of the legislative session, it's about what you get out of the legislative session. And at some point, we got to draw a line in the sand for this governor of ours because he wants to starve government. And most of us in this room, all of us in this room, still believe government can do good things for people and that it should do good things for people. And we got to get back to fair taxes, to fund government, to invest in our people, whether they're our sick people or our young people or our old people.